I would say absolutely yes. Collaboration in Silicon Valley and networking is really one of the key ingredients, and it's within their DNA, within the culture. It's a little bit different in the German culture, I would say. I think that the latest generation is adopting it a little bit more openly and globally, but very deeply in the Silicon Valley culture is networking, networking, networking. The other one is openness. People are here sharing all the time, all kind of things, and that's what makes this so unique. This ecosystem here. Now let's be very clear. It's not that everybody's opening up everything. It is still super competitive in the valley. But there's a fine line between being very secretive versus sharing enough with others to help others, and in return, they will help you. But ultimately, as you build a startup company, particularly with new technologies, you need to be a little bit careful what kind of things you share. Obviously, when it's IP, then you should be as um, secretive as you can be. But in general, sharing is a good thing, and it's within the culture. That's a good question. Successful innovation is the key word here success, or is it the innovation, or is it the combination of both? I would say successful innovation for me is when something is solving a real problem. And only if you solve a real problem, no matter what it is, but if you solve a problem by using new technologies and innovation, and definitely have an effect on people's life in one way or the other. It could be in the transportation industry, it could be in the health industry, in life science, doesn't really matter. But if you create something around innovation, or you use innovation to enable something that you want to build to solve a problem, for me, that's success. There are probably many innovations there that never made it out of a lab or was never commercialized, but most likely it's because it didn't solve a problem. If it doesn't solve a problem, it will make its way to the masses. There's no doubt about it. That's one of my favorite topics in general, and I have been passionate about it for 20, 30 years. I would say what I have seen over the last, particularly over the last year, with a program that we here on the GABA side and on the Transatlantic AI Exchange initiative, what we have put together, addresses that issue. And I have to say, Germany has changed a lot to the better. The new generation, or the recent generation of new entrepreneurial minded startup people, they are popping up all over the place. Everybody is trying to put a structure in place where research institutions are having a better outreach to universities in regards to students, building startups, campuses are being created, innovation programs, accelerator programs. So all of that is happening in Germany as we speak. And I can particularly speak more about the AI sector, but AI is really something, it's a workload that can be applied to every single element in our lives going forward. So it applies to everything. So I am super excited to be somewhat involved from here to help with other experts these initiatives in Germany. Now, where we are still, we meaning Germans, are still lagging, or there is some room for improvements, is really just very deeply rooted in our culture. Number one, act fast, be bold, be forward looking, risk taking. If you want to be a startup entrepreneur, you need to be willing to take the risk. And I see that more and more. Um, One of the biggest things that I believe everybody needs to overcome, and it's the environment in itself, is the willingness for risk taking, but it's more important to also accept failures. There is nothing wrong in failing in a startup here or in a startup there. That is not quite the case in the German culture. In Silicon Valley, if you fail one, two, three, four times, it doesn't really matter. What matters is what you do with it, what you do afterwards. Are you somebody who learns from it and picks it up positively and go to the next one? That kind of a culture, that kind of a mindset needs to be nurtured and supported within the German environment. Everything else is, I think, really on the right track. Yes and no. I'm definitely excited, and I have been working quite closely actually with incubation programs, accelerator programs that we have here, for many, many years. Obviously, you have the Y Combinator, you have 500 startups, you have the plug and play center, you have corporate incubation things. There are so many things. Google has its own, I would say, startup campus, so to speak. But I have not seen something as close to what I have experienced with LabCampus. I think the team is great, what you guys have put together. Having interacted with some of the startups with very particular industry-related use cases, and I'm talking about like autonomous driving and all these kind of bigger high-level market segments that they're going after, and having a facility, a physical facility where these kind of startup into innovation projects can come together, being physically hosted, and then also not only engage with each other, but also having the direct access to the customers and being so nicely conveniently located close to the airport with easy accessibility, even on a global basis. You fly into Munich, you have a probably meeting there, you can have a product demo. So in general, I really like the setup of the LabCampus, and I cannot really mention an equivalent setup of that sort here in the Valley. So congrats to the program. So far, so good. So when I was introduced a few months ago to the LabCampus project, moderating a session with some of your participants or attendees, the program itself was new to me. I have not seen this here in Silicon Valley in that form and shape. And when I learned more about the companies and the kind of projects that being hosted and nurtured within your facility, I was really impressed. Not only the caliber of people who have represented their companies and their projects, but also the kind of projects that are pretty, to some extent capital intensive. But in this particular case, having it so close physically to the airport with easy accessibility, even if you are a potential partner or customer, you fly into Munich, you go there, you have a meeting, probably have a physical demo on site, and then you just, out of there. That's very unique and very convenient to do business and to do business development and evangelizing these initiatives. So I think the setup itself, the culture in the way you reaching out to partners, to experts like myself in Silicon Valley, to openly speak about it, to promote, the kind of sharing culture, being open, is something that I think if you do this continuously, it will actually reflect on the overall culture, the way people will act within the program in itself. I think that's unique. I think it's the right way to do. And I really like the setup in itself.